Hello, everyone. I'm ZhouWang. I come from South China Botanical Garden, Chinese Academy of Science. Um, uh, my presentation is about fire history in Transbaikal region and its forcing. So here is the outlier. I'll start from motivation. Forest fire is an important factor in ecosystem. It shapes the forest dynamic, forest regeneration, and it influences the carbon balance. And forest fire also is a threat to human society. In boreal forest, the fire is an important ecological factor. Uh, in during only 6 years from 2000 to 2005, 6% of the boreal forest was burned, and especially in this year in Yakutia, the fire was burned for 4 months. Fire regime is an important concept in fire ecology. The fire regime is rather stable fire characters in the ecosystem. It's rather in a long term and in a broader spatial scale. And the fire regime, including the fire type of fires and the temporal patterns of fires, including fire intervals and fire seasons, and the special patterns of fires like burned area, fire radiation, and the consequence of fires. If we want to know the fire regime and the fire regime changes, we need a fire history data. But the fire history data was very limited in Asia and also in Siberia, in this region. So in this project, we want to fill this gap. The fire data was limited, but fire was severe in this region. As we can see in this map, this is the fire radiation map. The fire in Siberia, in Siberia and especially in Southeast Siberia, the fire radiation was high to 600 megawatt. And also for Chinese people, we may very familiar with the Black Dragon fire in 1987 in May 6th. We know this fire was caused a lot of damage, and many people was died in this fire. And in 2003, the mega fire also occurred in this region. So we want to know the fire regime changes in this fire activity changes in this region. In this fire triangle, we know the fire was influenced by human activity, fuels, and climate. But in Southeast Siberia, the fire was not a human activity, maybe not a major forcing of fires, because the population density was very low and the fuel was enough for fires. There are enormous fuels in this region. So we want to know which climate is the major climate factor is the major driver of the forcing in this region. Except the climate factors, we also want to know the external forcings like solar activity, because solar activity is like a trigger to the Earth. Sunspot number is an indicator of the fire activities. We know during past 400 years, there are some minimum time and maximum times of sunspot numbers. During past 80 years, some researchers found a pattern that sunspot number respond to the fires respond to the sunspot numbers. When the sunspot number low, the fire may be fire activities is very high. In different places around the world, researchers find the similar patterns. And solar activity also related to the drought. In many regions around the world, we find researchers find the drought was connected to solar activity. When the solar activity was low, the drought may be drought was severe, and we know that generally drought was related to fire. So based on about the background, we raised two questions. First is, did the fire regime changed in the Trans-Baikal region? And the second is, what is the major forcing of the fire history in Trans-Baikal region? And we have the two hypotheses, and the second hypothesis is the pathway of the causation of solar activity influence the forcing the drought, and drought forcing the fire, forest fires. So next is the data. We go to field work and take samples. We go to a region is called Romanovka in Southeast Siberia. It's in Trans-Baikal region, that is in the east side of Lake Baikal, and we take 60 sample sites. And we go to forest and to cut trees, and then we take samples, and we doing some lab work and measure these trimming discs, and we precisely cross-dating these samples, and we know when this fire was we know the exact year this fire was occurred, and also the seasons this fire was happened. Here is a sample like this disc. We know this fire scar was formed in 1990 and in late wood. And here is the second fire scar. It's early wood fire scar, and also this fire scar is also a early wood fire scar. So after we finish the lab work, we get the fire chronologies. It's 16 fire chronologies. We have two species. One is Scott pine, and another is larch. So here is the result. We find the fire activity was a significant increase from 1720 to 1920, and the fire activity, the fire frequency was decreased from 1920. The pattern also found in most regions around the world, and this is the result of fire interval. In our study area, the fire interval is around 11 years, and we compare with another two study. One is in the Northeast China, and another is in Mongolia. The fire interval was similar, but the vegetation is different, very different. So here is the climate factors connected with the fire activities. Here we can see the fire normally occurred in the drought year. PDSI and the monthly drought code indicate the drought in this region, and also we can see most of fires was occurred during the low sunspot number years. So, and then we use the ACA analyze to confirm this relationship between drought and fire, and the temperature and fire, and the sunspot number and fire. So we can see during this PDSI during the year PDSI is very low, the fires commonly happened in the low PDSI years and high monthly drought code years, and also in the current years the temperature was high, and also the 3 years before the fire event years, the temperature is also high. This may be caused the high temperature can dry the fuels, and also the sunspot number was very low at fires and fire event years. So we also compare with the other two research. We find in this inland area, the drought is the major cause of the fire, but in Northeast Asia, in Northeast China, that is not a similar pattern in this region. Then we doing a cross wavelet to analyze the correlation between climate factors and also sunspot number with the fires in time and period domain. So the correlation between PDSI fire and the sunspot number, the figure E, is we can see in the period of 10, the fire was connected with highly correlated with sunspot number, and also fire also connected with PDSI in a 10 years period, and but for multi drought code in a high frequency domain. Then we doing some time series analyze. It's a granular causity relationship between climate forcing and also sunspot number and fires. And then we doing a structure equation model to test the pathway of cause from sunspot number to drought and from drought to fires. And our data present that the pathway is robust from our data. Also, we expand our study area to show the sunspot number, the relation between sunspot number and fires in the long term, and we can also see when the sunspot number during this sunspot number minimum period, the fire was very high. The fire activity was very high. Then, but it's very difficult to explain why the solar activity was connected with fire. Some explanation is that the solar activity connected with lightning, and some other also things. It's the cloud. So it's difficult to explain the mechanism between solar activity and fire. But we find this statistical correlation. So based on this pattern, we find, our Earth was coming to the 25th solar activity cycle. So this is a very it's also a minimum time. So based on the patterns before, we can predict that in this fire cycle, in this solar cycle, the fire activity also very high. So here is the conclusion. First is the fire regime changed during 1932 to 2007. And the second is the solar activity forcing drought, and the drought drives forest fire occurrence. Third is the drought is the major climate driver of the forest fire, and the fourth is the severe drought and the fires was expected predicted for the future, especially in 25th solar cycle. So here is some pictures of field work. Thanks Igor and Nina, they helped me a lot, and thanks the Russia friends, we are very fun. We have a lot of fun in the field work. Okay, that's all. Thank you.